Okay, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ken, and I told you in the previous video that I would tell you physically what I've been up to in the real world. And I've talked about, so far this week, I've talked about AEW. I've talked about where I'm at on my spiritual journey and the conclusion that I've come to and how I'm feeling a lot better. And now let's talk about my physical everyday existence and what I've been up to, why I haven't been uploading every day. Because for a long time, past couple months, this right here was my focus. It was channeling the light, talking about something throughout the day, every day. I really wanted to make a video. And when you do that, it kind of devalues, at least from my experience, it devalues the process. I came off as inauthentic a lot of times because it's like, what am I going to talk about today? I don't know. But when you also think of it from a different perspective, it's like, okay, this is like a video diary. This is just what I'm experiencing and talk about it. And of course, people love that stuff, so they flock to it. And that's where this comes into play, this theme, right? Ultimately, what I am is a storyteller. What I've been doing with my time is I have been getting back into writing my book. I started a book a long time ago. I wrote 2 drafts of it, finished it in 2019. Second draft was finished in about 8 months. And so I was really on a roll, kind of burnt out. I had neglected certain parts of my life to get this done and needed a big break. Unfortunately, my approach was so balls to the wall that I just burnt myself out on it completely. And I was just like, I need a break. After I stepped back for a couple years, because literally within a year I was trying to touch up the timeline, expand the lore of the world and everything, and you're like, wait a minute, how did you finish a book twice without expanding the lore of the world? And that's where the problems come up. I developed characters way early before that and didn't develop the world, and then I didn't fully develop the character relationships, and I just started being a pantser and writing by the seat of my pants. And the first draft was a mess. I was able to go back, make a kind of a cohesive timeline of the world, and get the second draft written. And then people read that, and they had very logical questions of the fallacies in the world and the characters and how everything was half baked. And so every time I tried to go back to it, I was just kind of met with meh. That's how I felt about it. Like, ultimately, it was like, I don't have a cohesive story. I know what plot I want to tell, but I don't have there's just a logical fallacy in how everything is handled. So, around that time, my mom passed away, so I was, really just not there with it emotionally to delve into this and try to fix this second draft of this fantasy world that I was writing. And that was 4 years ago. No, 5 years ago. It's been 6 years almost since I wrote this this story. So it's one of those things. I just needed to step away. And then I started getting out of the trauma of losing my mother, and then someone tried to carjack me at gunpoint, and then that was a whole nother load of trauma that has lasted for almost 3 years. So, and I finally come out of that. The trip to Hawaii actually helped. I think I left this out of the last video, but I feel like I'm on the other side of that now. Coming back from Hawaii and everything, it just feels a lot better, and I feel like I'm back to myself. I'm back to where I was in 2022, back before all the trauma, back before I went on this huge spiritual expedition. And where I'm at now is I'm standing on the other side, and instead of feeling hopeless and like nothing matters, I'm like, nothing truly matters, but I'm filled with hope and love, and I'm going to be that sort of guiding light, if I can be, to some people. So that's just kind of a side tangent, and that is all to say that I'm here and I'm writing a book now. And it is completely different than the book that I was writing before. Now, it started off as a different idea, and it's completely different world, completely different characters. I started off with the world. I started off with the people that were in the world. I started off with a small concept. I wanted to tell essentially a zombie apocalypse story that was new, but in a fantasy world, like a new take on it. And then as I started writing from that core concept, creating the city that it would take place in this fictitious world, and once I finally made the jump that this world is fiction, fantasy rather, I need to develop the world. And so I've been doing that. I've been world building, and now I have a plot, and I have what some would be like, oh, I have a treasure trove. I have a series. I'm going to write a series. And this is where my philosophy on writing comes into play. And this is where I differ from where I was at a couple of years ago. And that is that I notice everything getting bigger. Look no further than the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy. Video games in general, they're hundreds of gigabytes now. Every game wants to push the boundaries and be the largest game ever. And you can put 200 hours in to what? Waste my life? Okay. You know, it's like I'm going to put 200 hours into this fantasy world and achieve virtually nothing here. That's what you're asking of me for constant monetization. Release a half-baked game, that's a whole different story. But the storytellers of today's era want to focus on scope and make it the largest possible. They don't want to focus on quality. It's all quantity right now. And in a world where everything is all quantity, the easiest way to stand out is to just write something that like they did back in the 90s or the early 2000s and just make it a one-off, or make it very just efficient. Write efficiently. Cut out all the garbage that doesn't need to be there. If you're developing something, say, in the story I'm telling, is this concept going to affect the rest of the characters, the world, the story? Is it necessary? If the answer is no, like if you can remove that piece and the entirety of the story does not get affected, it is not necessary. It's absolutely not necessary to be in there. And so instead of having a book series of like 4 books, I'm just gonna write one single book that's like 3 to 4 parts, and I'm gonna try to fit it in to these tight things. Now obviously you have to give yourself room to adjust. If there's something that's there and it was definitely worthwhile to explore that further, maybe it's gonna add to, then maybe definitely do that. But if it is just padding, you know, you're gonna feel it. I think that's why I wound up hating The Walking Dead. It's because there was a guy I remember very vividly, and I was just like, what are you talking about? His name was Trevs Chan 2. He covered everything The Walking Dead for the longest time. Nothing against the guy or anything, but he was very much just like, if they produce it, I'll watch it. And I had this real huge moment of realization where I was differing from the rest of the world, in that he was like, maybe all of this could be filler and it could go somewhere. And I'm just like, why do you want filler? Why does anybody want filler? The concept of filler is just like, you don't have anything from story beat to story beat because the material's not there. The comics, the manga, the anime is based off of, whatever, isn't to that point. So we create a filler arc where it's just the characters go on a side quest, and we basically put it in a giant little loop to where the characters wind up at the exact same spot at the end of that little story as they was where they left. So they're at the exact same spot, and we can just continue the story on from there. And I hate the concept of filler, and I absolutely hate the concept of people just saying we need filler. You don't need filler. Filler is horrible waste of time, in my opinion. And that is where the title of this video comes into play. It is my responsibility as a storyteller. That is to entertain. That is to provide you with a good quality story that is engaging and flows well. It's not here to waste your time or to preach to you or to anything along those lines. This world is already preachy enough with all the judgmental people that are out there trying to push their ideologies on you. It's crazy. I'm not going to include that. I'll never preach or talk down to you in my story or anything like that. So those are my vows. Those are the kind of cores that I'm kind of developing as I took a break and I'm starting to come back to it and figuring out what voice do I really want to use when I push forward with this story. So pretty much I go to work, I come home, I work out, I get clean, spend time with the wife and make dinner, and after we clean up I just crack the laptop open and finish off the night with at least an hour of writing. And it's been a couple weeks and I'm almost at the end of creating the world, and I already have 90% of the plot created in my head. I just need to finish out the world building and then finish out the character bios, really figure out who those characters are, get a very detailed note of their history, and then figure out where to go from there. So feel like I'm really approaching it the right way, because if you're going to tell a good story, the character motivations need to be there. And again, I'm doing this before I actually start writing the book, because before this is done, I'm going to have a very deep knowledge of all the characters, the main characters that are in there. I'm going to be having a detailed plot outline as to where the story's going to go and how it is all going to wind up wrapping up in the end. And I think those are all very important things to have, because the last thing I want to do is be like George R.R. Martin, who I wanted to be so bad back in 2019. In fact, the chronicle of my previous novel and the writing process is one that, if you would like it, I could make a video about. But again, I'm not going to adhere to a strict schedule, but all you have to do is let me know that you want it, and I'll put it out there. But yeah, that's where we're at with it. And that's what I've been doing with my time. So that's why I have not been uploading as much, and I'm not going to be putting these out immediately. I'm not going to be spending 2+ hours editing all these videos that I just made back to back to back. We will see when they're out, but hopefully by the end of the weekend. But with that said, everyone, that's what I'm doing. And if you want more, hit the subscribe button, hit the like, let me know in the comments how you feel about it. And hey, until the next time, my name is Ken, and I'll see you then.